Hi, welcome back. I'm here with Frida Polli, founder and CEO of Pymetrics. Frida, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Al. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Now, you are normally based in New York City, yeah?
Yep.
And you're not there right now, however. You chose
No, my fake background is not indicative of where I am, but we moved out of the city. We moved out of the city about a month ago. Pymetrics became work from home in early March. Just because my parents actually live in northern Italy, and so we were tracking that fairly closely, probably sooner than most people that are living in the US. And so I thought we should start the physical distancing sooner rather than later. So we've been out here for about a month. So it's been very interesting working, living, homeschooling, and doing other things all in this one home. It's all a blur, like days start and end, and who knows where they go, and then the weekend you're still here, and it's been funny, but it's been nice. I mean, I think that it's been really nice. I have 3 kids, 3 daughters, and it's been really nice to be able to spend more time with them, and take lunch breaks with them, and do stuff like that. So although I do think one of the funniest posts I saw recently on Twitter was a guy who was saying, this work from home thing is great. It's really the parenting from work that I have a problem with. And I was like, that's so dead on. Like when you're like in the middle of something and someone comes in and needs something and you're like, this is my workplace. So
that is,
that was great. Yeah.
That encapsulates it quite well. We have, our kids are 16 and 19, in other words, young men. And suffice to say, they're a little antsy right now.
Right. So, yeah. We have a 14-year-old, and then a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. So we've got the whole spread here. So
we've got a whole crew going on. Yeah. Well, with that, thanks for making time. And we've spoken before at our conference, PAFOW conference, and we've done a podcast before.
Yep.
For those who are just hearing you for the first time, do you mind doing a quick introduction and obviously Pymetrics, what it's all about?
Sure. No, absolutely. So I'm Frida Polli. I'm the CEO and founder of Pymetrics. Prior to Pymetrics, I spent 10 years as an academic scientist at Harvard and MIT. My specialty was cognitive neuroscience, which is really just a form of behavioral science. You try to understand people better using, the latest and greatest techniques. I really liked what I was doing. I am somewhat of an impatient person, so the whole research timeline became a little slow for me. Wanted to have more impact, went to business school, saw recruiting firsthand for 2 years because that's what MBA students do, and found myself fascinated by this notion that, here we are trying to understand fundamental cognitive, social, and emotional aspects of people. We're trying to match them to the right jobs. We're trying, or ideally we'd like to do this all in a technology-enabled way. And I was just struck by the fact that, what was happening in front of me for 2 years was so analog. It was all coffee chats and focus groups and company presentations, and there was really no technology behind it. And yet in the consumer world, there were dating apps, there was Amazon, there was Netflix, like all these machine learning platforms that were taking behavioral data and matching you with what you wanted. And I was just kind of just blown away by the fact that we weren't doing this in the field of work, which is, such a critical decision that we're making. So that was the genesis of Pymetrics. And, we've been around now. We've been building the product for, I hate to say this, but 7 years. And it's been in market now for almost 4. And it's been a great ride. I mean, I think we've really been able to build something that's quite differentiated and work with some really amazing, I think, forward-thinking clients that really are very aligned in terms of not only making the matching process more accurate, but also making it more fair. Because that was another thing that, research has shown this, and then my own experience, validated it, which is that, unfortunately, our human biases lead us to actually select underqualified people who we think fit the stereotype over more qualified people who don't. And I think that that's kind of one of the other main things that the platform allows for is really increasing diversity, not just gender and ethnic diversity, but socioeconomic diversity, age diversity, and all sorts of diversity. Because really, fundamentally, when we continue to pick from a homogeneous pool. We are by definition not choosing the best talent. We are actually just choosing the sort of more sort of cookie cutter talent. And so we really need to think about how we can use these tools to expand opportunity for all. So,
well,
not sure that was a nutshell, Al, but big nutshell.
No, yeah, I think it's outstanding. I've been a fan for quite a while now, and for you not only to have that idea, but to bring it to life and do so in such a virtuous way. So there's a few topics that I want to talk about in there, because you have taken a lead role in the responsible and ethical use of AI. So not just grabbing a bunch of data and assuming that bias doesn't need to be appreciated, that we have to be conscious of what data that we're collecting and analyzing and so forth. So I'd like to, for a minute, back when you feel it's appropriate. What I do want to talk about right off the bat is that we have this global health crisis, and there are people getting laid off, and leaders are anguishing over, what to do. Do I keep these people? What's the risk? When is the economy getting opened up? And you all have taken a lead role in helping organizations and individuals think through this problem of redeployment, in cases of employees getting furloughed. So can you speak to that?
Yeah. So, at its core, Pymetrics is a matching engine, right? So we get used for hiring, assessment, mobility, and such. But at the end of the day, what we fundamentally do is help people understand themselves better and help companies understand their own talent better, and then make the match and say, here are people that look like what you find works best within your company. And, generally speaking, we've focused on hiring assessment. We've looked at internal mobility. We have had for a while a product that we call Marketplace, which is essentially connecting people across companies, right? Because a lot of times when you're applying to company A, and this is what I saw at business school, somebody would apply to a bank and then come to find out, they weren't a good fit for that. They were actually a really good fit for marketing. Well, no one was helping them make that connection, but that was sort of the idea behind Pymetrics, is let's optimize the match no matter if it's within a company or outside of a company. So we've had this product called Marketplace, been sitting around for a while, and it does get used, but it's not sort of front and center. Well, all of a sudden, we are experiencing the biggest redeployment of talent basically ever, right? And, right now it's coming primarily in the form of furloughs and, people getting laid off and whatnot. However, even within this time of crisis, we do see certain companies that are hiring en masse. I mean, you saw Amazon, and others that are, in industries that are growing, really doubling down on their hiring. So we thought to ourselves, why don't we take Marketplace and really open it up as a redeployment platform, because it's such a needed thing, right? And it's painful. I mean, you hear personal stories of people that well, who are, getting laid off, whose parents are getting laid off, their friends, their family, and there's nothing wrong with them. They were not doing a bad job. It's just that nobody's going to a bar anymore. Nobody's going to a hairdresser anymore. Nobody's flying airplanes, and so on. And so why not help those folks, both in the short and medium, longer term, understand what else might I be a good fit for, and how can I help retrain myself if I need to basically explore other opportunities. So we're partnering with two other platforms. I can't say who they are right now, but basically a platform that looks more at skills, and then another platform that looks at sort of educational retraining. And in a matter of weeks, not months, we hope to have something that's out in the field helping people make this new connection with a different form of work, because we'll see what ends up happening when the crisis is over, and who knows what over means really. But I think that people that have been studying these types of public health crises have a feeling that even when we're no longer sheltering in place, or we're no longer in lockdown, it's society might not completely just reset to where it was before. We might see some trends that will persist, and I think some of those trends will then lead to shifts in employment. I don't think unemployment necessarily is going to remain at this record high. I think it's just that people are going to be doing different types of jobs. I mean, we were talking about you and how PAFOW has had to change its business model on a dime, and you and many others are having to think about that. So So we're very excited about this redeployment platform. Check in with us, in 6+ weeks, and we'll be able to share more and tell you when it's going live.
As that rolls out, there's an underlying, and again, if you think differently on this, please clarify, that individuals know what they want and where their strengths are. And so it's like, hey, I have an engineering degree, therefore I'm going to be an engineer, where in fact, behaviorally, energetically, they might be better in another role. So can you just speak to the self-work that we need to do and the honest exchange that we need to have with ourselves and maybe with a intimate cohort to focus?
Look, I think at the end of the day, Pymetrics is, in HR words, a soft skill platform, right? We don't look at hard skills. We look at cognitive traits like, memory, attention, planning, and so on. We look at emotional things like how emotionally sensitive are you, how risk-taking are you? And then we look at social attributes like how altruistic are you? And I'm sort of synthesizing it, right? But at the end of the day, we're a soft skill platform. We know from lots and lots of years of research that soft skills are predictive of your job aptitudes. I mean, that's just sort of a basic thing. It's behind a lot of career planning and assessments, right? So we know this for a fact. We also know that if you're a soft skill fit for something, you're going to much more easily acquire the hard skills that job may or may not require. Whereas the inverse is not true. Even if you're a hard skill fit, if you're not a soft skill fit, you're going to it's like a, round peg and a square peg in a round hole, sort of, in perpetuity, right? So look at me. I was an English major in college. I actually like to read, and then became a scientist, right? And, now I'm an entrepreneur. So just because I trained in a certain thing doesn't mean I don't have aptitudes to do, other things, right? And especially as we live longer, as our lives are more complex, and as we need to be engaged or want to be engaged with work for a longer period of time, I think it's fundamental to look at soft skills over hard skills, right? And I've thought this pre-crisis because, at the end of the day, your hard skills are something that can evolve quickly over time. Your soft skills are something that's more sort of inherent about you. It's kind of like the glue, right? The thing that doesn't change as much about you, right? However, they can also mean that your potential to do many jobs is actually much greater than what your hard skills would say about you, right? Your resume is very limiting. It's like, oh, I've done 2 or 3 things in life, but maybe I could actually do 20 or 30, but that's not reflected on my resume. So I think there's so many advantages to looking at soft skills. And again, I thought this pre-COVID, but in COVID, I think it's just exponentially amplified how I think about this because, think about, the travel industry, the airline industry, the hotel industry, the, live events industry, all of those industries, like they may not come back in the form that we thought of them previously. They may not. And does that mean that all of a sudden I become irrelevant to society? No, right? It just means that you are now looking at a completely different type of society. And what does that mean? What could you be suited for? And I just have this fundamental belief that humans are so flexible and they have so much potential, and we really have done them a disservice in focusing primarily on hard skills and sort of educational attainment and all the rest of it, when at the end of the day that's just a way to try to summarize what someone's good at. But if you have a better way, looking at soft skill potential, I think really expedite the notion that you can really tap into so much more of what someone might be good at. So that's sort of where my thinking has always been. And I think that the crisis is only accelerating, my thinking on that. And I think it's critical that we double down on this, for the sake of everyone who is really suffering. I mean, you and I are lucky, yes, I have to work from home. Yes, my Wi-Fi is not good. Yes, I have to parent at work. But those are minor inconveniences when you think about some very serious issues that a lot of people are facing. So.
Right. Yeah. And, thank you for saying that. And I couldn't agree more. And, because for years, when I say years, probably for the history of business or hiring, it's been the case where I need somebody with the skills to do X. And then they don't work out. And why did they work out? And fast forward, we've learned a lot why they don't work out, yet we have not had the systematic measurements in place to understand individuals and really what the cultural attributes are that we can nurture and amplify. So I have a pointed question in this is like, Microsoft transformed their organization around growth mindset. And Carol Dweck wrote the book, Mindset, the New Psychology, says roughly 2008. And obviously it's based on yet other research, but just holding on to that construct. I have since gone out and asked many organizations, hey, if we need individuals who are going to learn fast, learn appropriately, learn independently, are you assessing for that? No. Are you developing towards that? No. Like, then what are we doing?
What are you doing? Yeah, totally.
To your point,
I also think,
we're in this place where we need it. It's non-negotiable. We need that. Yeah.
Totally. I also think, like, I actually have a bit of a bone to pick with this whole notion of learning agility, because people, again, and, you know, God bless management consultants. My dad was a management consultant, so, you know, God bless them, but they've kind of trained everyone that we're all looking for people with learning agility. I mean, I'm not going to curse on the show, but what does that mean, really? And because, like, maybe I will later, but you know, the point is, like, I can be very learning agile if I'm actually suited to what I'm learning, right? There are many things that I might want to learn, like to learn, and will learn. There are other things that I would really not be interested in learning. And so therefore, I think learning agility is not this unitary construct that we're just going to measure in someone. It's really very dependent on what we're trying to have somebody learn. And there are many, I would make a terrible lawyer. I would make a terrible bunch of things. I would not be very learning agile if you were to put me in a, you know, legal training program. But I've also, obviously, you know, I've gone from being, you know, an English major to a neuroscientist to an entrepreneur, and who knows what I'll do next. Right. So I think it's all about finding people's fit and pointing them in that direction. And then I think many, many more people have that learning agility that we're all looking for. So.
And yeah, just to take off what you're obviously, and correct me if I'm wrong, you are passionate and you are focused. So if I'm looking for attributes in somebody who's going to get stuff done, those are some of the attributes that I want. You know, I want them to learn. I want them to be creative. I want them to be kind, all these things. But, you know, how then do we interview for that? So I'll be the first one to cuss. So many hiring managers and recruiters have a cover your ass approach. It's like, okay, you know, they worked at Google, therefore they, you know, got to, you know, they'll work out. So again, can you speak to some of these other attributes that, you know, what you believe are, you know,
sure, absolutely. So I mean, so the idea behind Pymetrics was a soft skill platform. So I was at Harvard Business School watching all these very smart people trying to figure out, okay, I just did this for a number of years. Now I want to do something else. How am I going to figure out what I should do? And then all these recruiters who are just like, you know, kids in a candy store. Oh, there's all these Harvard students. Which one should I hire? Right. But even in that context, it really was obvious that it wasn't working well. Like, you know, friends were getting matched to things that then they were miserable in after 3 days. And again, they're all Harvard students. We do not have to feel bad for them. My only point is that even in this, you know, target-rich environment, it was not working well. And the reason was because it's very hard from a resume to understand, is somebody altruistic or not? Does somebody have attention to detail or not? Does somebody have good working memory or not? Like, all of these things are extremely hard, if not frankly impossible, to derive from a piece of paper that has a list of activities that I've done, right? And so people try to use proxies. They're like, oh, you played a sport? You must be a team player. Like, you know, it's like all these like really dumb, like, you know, heuristics that we use. So that's what we tried to build. We interviewed a lot of people in the hiring space. We said, what is it that you're trying to figure out from a resume, from an interview, that you're not getting? And that was the soft skill library that we created. We measure, you know, over 80 different things. And, you know, that library really was constructed after many, many interviews with HR professionals who told us what they're looking to measure. And we've expanded on that as we've grown as a company. We now have an interview analytics platform. We have a, you know, numerical and logical reasoning platform, and we continue to expand the library. But the whole point is that if you directly try to measure these things through looking at people's behavior, it is far more accurate and will work a lot better than what we do now, which is, you know, basically educated guessing off of resumes. And even interviews, I think, can have some challenges as well. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to pick up on it a bit more, and I'm going to reference a Harvard professor who I'm sure you're familiar with, Steven Pinker, who wrote a book, among many books, The Blank Slate, which was very interesting to me. I'm adopted, so I have a very, is it existential? Is it my environment? Did I come in with certain predispositions?
Sure. Yeah.
It was beautiful to read his works and listen to him, because effectively it's an 800-page essay about Western society's ignorance of human nature. We have certain predispositions, and they're not to be criticized and put in a box, but it's for us to honor and celebrate. And I don't see that happening in recruiting or development. We're trying to square pegs and round holes, trying to say you can be anything you want, just work hard enough. But we understand that we do have certain boundaries. What's your reply to that?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think that, like, unfortunately, so think about the way dating has evolved, right? I think maybe 50 years ago, you were told, let's take women. Women were told, be this, this, and this, and you'll find your perfect husband, right? So it was a very cookie cutter. Everyone should fit into this mold. You should all be, I don't know, cook well and look pretty or whatever it was, and you'll find your perfect mate, right? Now, fast forward to 2020, everybody's like, just be yourself. You're going to find your right person. And you could be the, most sort of like, warts and all version of yourself. The whole notion is come as yourself. You're going to find the right fit. So we've really thrown out this idea that everybody has to cook well and be pretty if you're a female, right? Yep. I'm just laughing because that sounds so bad. Anyway, so, but that's what we're doing at work. We're basically telling everyone cook well and be pretty, right? We're basically saying, like, be smart, be nice, be hardworking. I mean, maybe there's lots of jobs where being nice actually isn't an asset. Like if you're, I don't know, a security guard, a bouncer, I don't know, there are other, like, do you know what I'm saying? Like we keep banging into people's heads that there's only one right way to be a productive worker. You have to have learning agility now. You have to be smart. Like, and I just fundamentally think that's a terrible message, B, untrue, because there are so many jobs in the world. And there are so many people in the world. It cannot be possible that there's like one or two or three ways that you can be successful. There's millions of ways you can be successful. And so I think we have to take a much more warts and all approach to work. It's like, and that's what Pymetrics does. It's a fit-based system. Everything we measure can be very adaptive given the role. So we have this measure of attention. Some people are somewhat inattentive and biased to action. That's me, by the way. And some people are super attentive and very methodical, right? If you're an accountant, guess what? You want to be on the methodical, biased to, detail, end of the spectrum. And if you actually need to be creative, you probably are going to be more on my end of the spectrum, right? And again, we measure 80 of these things. And the point is you could be fine on either end or in the middle, or it doesn't matter, but it's all about matching you to the right role. So I do think we have to completely throw out this notion that there's one right way to be. And it's very constrictive, and it leads to a lot of discrimination too, because think about people that are neurodiverse, whether you have, any kind of difference, brain difference, right? Anything from, dyslexia to, depression to anything. You're not going to fit the mold of whatever people thought, and again, some people are not going to like me saying this, but I think there are models of what makes for a good employee are also very dated. They're dated back to like 1970s, 1950s science, where, everyone had to be, extroverted and, lacking in eroticism. Well, that's just not true, right? And I think these models are not only constrictive, right, where everyone's trying to conform to this one way of being, but they're also exclusionary. And they exclude a lot of really gifted, talented people who just happen not to look like the norm, whatever that is. And that I find even more frustrating, because we know that, dyslexics tend to be overrepresented in entrepreneurs. People that are on the Asperger's spectrum, there's lots of things they can be good at, and so on and so forth, right? And we need to embrace neurodiversity rather than, thinking of it as a flaw that we have to somehow fix. I just think that the whole field of person assessment needs a massive reset, and it needs to be sort of upgraded, for 2020, and beyond.
And what I'm hearing in what you're saying, and it's been almost cliche over the past 10 or so years, is that we want to create a culture where someone can bring their whole self to work. Totally. And it's been kind of a saying, but in reality, it's been whole self to fit in that box. So when you say, it's like, no, we actually have to honor that diversity of ways of being and ways of thinking, and separate it, not try and, have it be conformed, you know, obviously within certain parameters, because you don't want, you know, someone walking down the hall, you know, smoking and kicking people.
Of course. Right, of course. But I mean, I think that it's still reflected in so much of what we read and hear about when it comes to recruiting, for example, right? Like, I mean, there are these really, in my opinion, offensive pieces out there that are telling people of color how to whiten your resume. I mean, I would be, if like, I'm obviously white, but if I were not, I would be incensed that somebody was recommending that. Like, that's just like, that's wrong, right? And again, I mean, that's, I think, one of the, you know, worst examples I've seen out there, but there's plenty of things that are basically, the message is, be homogenous, fit the mold, don't be yourself. And again, then you've got to wonder why everyone is unhappy at work, right? Like, well, you're unhappy because A, you're not matching to the right thing, and B, you're not being allowed to be, you know, your true self. And I think that, I just think that's very unfortunate and leads to all sorts of issues. You know what I mean? And I think that we should embrace diversity. We should, you know, do lots of things in a more modern way, I think. So
given all that, I want to go back to what we parked earlier, because the responsible use of AI, ethical use of AI, is historically, we've just been pushing out data. We are going to analyze that data. We're going to apply machine learning, and now we have an AI engine, and everything's going to be great. But that has not been attentive to the data that we're putting in the first place. So I'm hearing what you're saying is that we have to be very mindful, and that's what you have been doing. You've been saying, okay, we're really conscious, because we're going to minimize bias, because correct me if I'm wrong, to remove bias entirely, particularly over time, is almost an impossible task. It has to be managed. Can you know, what ethical AI looks like to you?
Sure. Well, I think I want to answer the ethical AI question in like two different ways, you know. So I think that, you know, so there are two different things specifically, or three maybe, but let's just go in order. So the first thing that I think is super important that people underemphasize is, again, the model that you have for your tool. And what I mean by that is that you can use whatever machine learning system you want in the world. But if your model is that these three things are what I need to be looking for in my data, meaning smart, you know, hardworking, and whatever the other one is, and that those are the only things I'm looking for, you're by definition creating a system that's exclusionary. Do you know what I mean? So it's not a fit-based system. It's not like, oh, people are different everywhere and I'm going to match everyone to the different things. It's like, no, I'm assuming that only these three things are correct. And this isn't about machine learning. This is just about the behavioral science behind assessing people. Does that make sense? So that's problem number one. It's just, and that becomes very exclusionary, again, like we talked about. Then the second part is the actual machine learning algorithms you're building on top of that data, right? And so again, maybe you have a more flexible model in terms of what you're looking for your, you know, good employee, but there's some demographic associations, right? So I'm flexible in what I'm looking for, but my training set tends to be overly Caucasian. And so therefore I'm picking up on stuff that doesn't relate to the job. It just relates to the fact that right now I've employed more Caucasians than not. And now I'm just going to continue to hire more Caucasians because my data models are essentially biased towards a particular demographic, right? So it's really two different things. One is like the assumption you make about what makes for a good employee that has nothing to do with the machine learning model. It's just saying some models are not fit-based, you know, like an IQ model. There are lots of companies and lots of people that still believe that cognitive testing, IQ testing is like the way to go, and that, you know, smart people make good employees everywhere. And again, I mean, I don't buy that. There are a lot of people that think that that's still accurate. If you have that model, you are going to, by definition, be excluding people that don't fit your threshold of whatever IQ or cognitive testing you're using. And then, so that's what you want to, you know, what you think a good employee looks like. And then there's the data modeling, which then adds additional challenges around if you're not creating it in an ethical way that's looking for different types of bias, whether it's gender, ethnicity, age, you know, neurodiversity, and so on. You then run the risk of, it's a different problem. It's a separate problem that I was talking about before, but it's related because again, you're excluding people unnecessarily from the workforce. So.
Right. Yeah. And so where I want to take us now, as we start to wrap up here, obviously we have COVID-19 and you're in New York, so you're in the mix. And my question to you is, what do you hope happens in the wake of this? You talked about the redeployment that you're doing, but what do you see happening? What do you want to happen?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I think, look, have you seen the meme that's going around where it's like, who spearheaded your digital transformation? And it's like CTO, CEO, or COVID-19. And, I think that we are seeing that. We are definitely seeing that digital everything is being accelerated, right? And of course, part of that is also AI, machine learning. I think that really just brings to a head certain things that were already happening, right? Like people were starting to embrace these tools, but there was concern around bias, there was concern around homogeneity, and so on and so forth, right? So I think we're kind of at a crossroads. I think we can either double down and say, no, this is, not where we want to go. We don't want to just use these tools to continue the old ways of doing things and, make the workforce homogenous, blah, blah, blah. And I think, or we can just, not care so much about the type of AI we're building and say, if it has bias, I've got more important issues to deal with. I've got all these people that are out of work. I don't care, right? And I think it really behooves us to do the former. I might start parenting at work any minute now because I hear a child coming downstairs. But hi, cutie pie. So
good.
You might see someone in the background now. But anyways, the point is that I think we really have a choice to make, which is we want to build safeguards around digital processes, AI-driven processes, so that, the current situation that we're in now where, we have a workforce that's too white, that's too male, that's too, sort of neurostereotypical, we want to be able to use these tools to actually blow that out of the water. Like, I don't think we want to go back to some of the problems that we had pre-COVID. We have a ability to totally redesign the system. Like, let's grab that opportunity. Let's not just say, oh, well, we've got, it's too challenging to think about diversity now that we have to deal with COVID. No, now is the time. You know what I mean? We have the perfect opportunity to start thinking about these things. Because, as I was telling you before the show started, Al, there's this notion that diversity is this like sort of irrelevant or sort of, thing that doesn't really matter that much. It is critical to tapping into the potential of our entire society. It is not this side thing that should be done on the side. It is absolutely critical to realizing the entire potential of our society. And we are absolutely sort of, like plateauing if we don't do that. I am 100% convinced of that. I think if we had a more diverse set of people that were making decisions in general, we might have avoided some of the, challenges we've had with this crisis, right? So I'll leave it at that without getting too political. But I really think we can redesign things in a way that will be not only more inclusive, but honestly, there you go. That will be much more inclusive in general. So
that is cute right there. I've seen cute before. That's cute. And she just magically appeared too. That was outstanding.
Out of the background. I know I have children that just magically appear.
Well, Frida, it is always a pleasure to listen to you, learn from you. And again, I applaud what you and Pymetrics are doing there. I think I'm hearing that it honors the individual. It helps them set themselves up for success. It helps organizations do that at scale. So I wish you the very best, both professionally and there personally.
And parenting at work.
Yeah, parenting at work. It seems like you're doing outstanding. So yeah, all the best. We'll talk soon, yeah?
Thank you, Al. You too.
All right, Frida. Bye. Bye.
Bye.